Right.
And I've always wondered this, and I'm so happy to have you, because it makes no sense to me as a white person, and I'm not naive to how things work, but that has to be one of the first questions I think I would have. It's like,
Yeah.
this book, as you well did, is held up, in especially during the slave era and even up to the civil rights era and today, saying it's in the Bible that we should be segregated back in the 60s. It's in the Bible.
Yeah.
And you go across town to the black church, it's the same Bible.
Yeah.
What was the logic when they said yes, but? Because I'm sure there was a but.
Oh, yeah.
How'd they get around that? What was their actual reasoning?
There's only one name on the face of this earth that can keep you out of hell. It's not Baptist, it's not Methodist, it's not Presbyterian, it's not Catholic, it's not Jew. There's just one name that can keep you out of hell, and it's the name of Jesus.
Lighten up, Francis.
This is Ask an Atheist, and I'm your host, Mike Smithgall. What you're about to hear is a clip from my full conversation with Cynthia McDonald. If you haven't heard the full episode, go check it out. It's really worth it. Yeah, well, let's take you back a little bit. To, you were in college, you were still feeling religious, and you made a good point. We don't do much in the Episcopal Church, so it's not a super exciting service. But then you go to a black church, the traditional stereotype of a black church, where it's much more enthusiastic and animated, and the singing and the music. How could you not like that? That is really, and I know you're in the godless gospel? Is that what it is now?
I am. Yes.
Yeah. So you're a musical person. You studied music, so it's right up your alley. But at some point, despite all that, the entertainment and performative part of it, the intellectual part of it, obviously started to get to you. So tell me about that. When did that start to kick in, or what was the impetus for that?
Yeah. Okay. So I was constantly being told by the ministers, the elders, and even like the pastor and the pastor's wife, who was also like, who was also an ordained minister, that I had a calling on my life, right? So yeah. Ooh, well, so so I was encouraged to join a ministerial class that they were going to have people join in order for them to become like a minister and be like the intro to like, moving up in like the leadership ranks when it came to ordination, right? So I was like, okay. So I joined, and I enjoyed it because I liked to learn. I liked to study. I liked to research. I liked to find out different things that I didn't know. But one of the things that happened is that I started to dive into the Bible and coming across the more problematic, scriptures. And often they will be part of our lesson plans that we were supposed to study that particular week before we actually had a class the following week. So of course I'm reading this, I'm studying this, I find out this is in the Bible, and I'm just like shocked, I'm floored, especially like, I think that the one that really bothered me the most was in Leviticus, I want to say 25, when there was like a whole scripture about how to organize and treat slaves. And of course, I'm reading this and being like a person, a student of history, of knowing about how like chattel slavery operated in the United States. It looks like, very similar. And of course, like then, you look into other sources that talks about how biblical teaching was utilized in order to justify slavery in the United States, to justify the transatlantic slave trade, later finding out that it was a papal bull from the Pope in the Roman Catholic Church in the, I want to say like the early 1500s that basically blessed the continuance and utilization of the transatlantic slave trade, and how you had like religious institutions and also universities that owned slaves that used the same scriptures in order for them to basically say that, well, it seemed like God was okay with it, so we should be too. And so I had questions.
Yeah, I bet.
And I would definitely say, depending on the church, I can't speak for every church. But from the conversations that I had from other people who came out of Christianity, especially the more charismatic faiths, that critical thinking, skepticism, and questioning are not encouraged in church.
Yeah, I agree.
So when I would come to my teacher and say, hey, I ran across this and I have questions about this, and I'm just going off and going off and going off, just asking question after question, follow up after follow up, because the answers that I were getting were just not satisfactory to me because they made no sense. It just seems like that they were just like surface level instead of just getting into the meat and potatoes of what I'm actually asking, right? Because I'm basically asking myself, why would such a benevolent God allow a whole structure in his holy word to be set up on controlling another human being whom supposedly he says he loves?
Right.
And then also, how could a benevolent God also allow such a horrible institution to exist to African Americans in order to enslave them? Even though I understand that even with the inception of the United States, not every Black person was enslaved, but the vast majority of them were. And you still had laws to govern whether if you were Black versus whether if you were white, what you could access and what you couldn't access, even before slavery was abolished.
Yeah.
And we know also through history that freed Blacks were sometimes captured and sold back into slavery. That's what 12 years a slave was all about. That person was a freed Black man who was, captured and sold illegally back into the institution of chattel slavery. So I'm like, I don't understand, like, if God is all loving, all knowing, all seeing, omniscient, all powerful, why would he allow this to happen, especially for people who were supposedly devoted to him? Because I was taught, even when I was in Catholic school, it was predominant, like my parochial school from K through 8th grade was predominantly Black. And we had majority Black teachers who would teach some of this history. And I'm trying to reconcile how this could happen to people who supposedly believed in them, and then also sit with rhetoric like, well, Black people were allowed to be sold and born and die in slavery in order for them to learn about Christianity. And I'm like, but God is all powerful and all knowing. How can he just like download the information in your head so that, you're Christian? You're like, oh, I believe now because God, put in a USB port really quickly in the back of my medulla oblongata and, gave me the info, right?
Yeah. Now, let me ask you a question, because this is fascinating to me. You're asking this of these religious leaders and scholar leaders, and they're predominantly Black. I'm assuming the ones that you're really asking, because you're asking within the community, say, okay, as a Black person to a Black person, how can you, as a religious person, be okay with this slavery thing? Right. And I've always wonder this, and I'm so happy to have you, because it makes no sense to me as a white person, and I'm not naive to how things work, but that has to be one of the first questions I think I would have. It's like, this book, as you well said, is held up, and especially during the slave era and even up to the civil rights era and today, saying it's in the Bible that we should be segregated back in the 60s. It's in the Bible. Yeah. And you go across town to the black church, it's the same Bible. Yeah. What was the logic when they said yes, but? Because I'm sure there was a but. Oh, yeah. How'd they get around that? What was their actual reasoning?
It was a lot of obfuscating to cherry picking. That's the best way that I can put it. Because, like, when you ask these very pertinent questions, because, like, I did the same thing when we were at the debate yesterday. I was talking to the pastor's wife, and I brought up the scriptures that can be contradictory, right? And also how our position as African Americans does not fare with our belief, right? And I brought up to her, I was like, you remember when I was talking about this at the American Humanist Association, like when I brought up the statistics when it came to wealth share alone. I was like, wealth share in this country now is 3.4% for African Americans. Yeah. It's less than 4%. Versus like 95, 96% in, predominantly, Caucasian hands.
Sure.
And we can point back to specific laws that were practiced in the United States that kept it that way. So this wealth, this chasm that we're even sharing when it comes to wealth ownership was completely made. It was completely human made. It was not something that just happened naturally, right?
Right.
And I'm like, so how can we rectify as a people, God standing by?
I'm going to jump to a question or a comment, because it's what we were talking about. Critical Christian, I have it on the screen there. The ancient Israelite slavery wasn't the same as 17th century slavery, and there's a whole chat going on in the comments between different people. But I've heard this before, and I don't know that I care.
Yeah, exactly. I don't care either. I mean, because, like, for the simple fact of the matter is that regardless, like, if slavery that was described, and especially how it was organized in the Bible versus, slavery that was like practiced in the States. And also in the Caribbean, in Central America, in South America, it doesn't matter, because still gave. Yeah, Egyptians had slaves.
It's a human
Babylonians
thing.
have slaves, right? Yeah, but regardless,
people do that.
Yeah, people do that. I mean, but the question to me is not, was it the same? The question is it right?
That to me is exactly it. That seems like the very bottom line. And your question. Now, you were asking a black scholar or a black religious leader because of the black experience, but the same question, you remove the black, and it's the same question. Like, how is a book that allows slavery good? How is a deity, regardless of what God you're praying to, but if there's a God that you think controls and loves, how is slavery at all within the bounds of possibility? And if they can stop various things from happening, why wouldn't they put a stop to that? And I can never quite understand any justification. I understand what maybe Critical Christian is saying, where there are different times, but those are the different human times. Yes, we may have allowed slavery as humans, and we now see that it's bad.
Right.
But we're humans. We're flawed by general nature. God is supposed to be above all this and said, no, this was wrong to begin with, guys. Stop it. I'm going to put a stop to it right now. I'm going to flood something if you guys don't stop it.
Exactly. I mean, like, especially like if you even look at like the New Testament, where like, Jesus says like, who the Son sets free is free indeed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even Paul said there's neither, bond nor free, Jew nor Greek, male nor female. We are all one in Jesus Christ. Like, so I'm thinking to myself, like, if we're looking at the scriptures, and it seems like that there was an emphasis on being free because the Messiah has come to free us from the bondage of sin. Why would this not translate also to the how we live as a people as well? And especially, and I mean, like, and even if we like fast forward today, right now in 2025, slavery is still practiced.
Exactly.
It's still practiced. I mean, like, even though that we don't necessarily have like the institution of slavery where you have like a majority of a population that's actually picking cotton,
right,
and dyeing cloth in indigo, it doesn't necessarily mean that people are not being like oppressed and suppressed and also being controlled in institutions that are making them do things that are outside of their of their own will and autonomy,
right?
And so, like, again, it forces us to really ask this question and really come up with like so what's the answer to this when it comes to why if God is so like caring and benevolent and all these different things, why would this God allow an institution like this to exist in the first place in humanity? Why?
I agree. It's baffling, and again, there's a whole conversation going in the comments, which I love. And Christian, what was your name again? Critical Christian. Thank you for putting this in there. I don't think I said at the beginning of this, but I try to make a point. I'm gonna make it now for everybody that is listening. We're not here to bash people, because majority, probably like you, Cynthia, most of the people I love in this world and have ever loved are Christians.
Sure.
So I'm not here to bash them or bash their beliefs per se. We obviously have questions with it, and we have disagreements. Right. But I'm not here to insult you intentionally. You're going to be insulted and feel offended because just the conversation sometimes. But that's not the intention. So, Critical Christian, when you put your comments in there, I'm reading them. I'm not necessarily posting them all just for flow of conversation, but I am reading them, and I do appreciate you putting them in there and being civil. As long as people are civil, we're happy to have, Cynthia and I are both happy to have these conversations, because it's very important. And we may never agree, but it's good that we have them. So again, thank you.
Exactly. Even when we were doing the debate yesterday, I said, like, we do not engage personalities, right?
Yeah.
But we do, we do disagree with ideas, right?
Exactly. It's an idea. And you may take it very personally, but it's still an idea nonetheless. I'm not saying you, the individual, right. I'm saying the idea I disagree with.
Right, exactly.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to today's show. I really hope you enjoyed it. Do me a favor and like and subscribe to the show and tell a friend. That helps us grow, and it lets us keep bringing you more voices from the other side of belief. Until we talk again, be kind to one another, and remember that reason and compassion go a long way.